Welcome to Inside the Program on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com. I'm Joe Cook, got Eric Naleen. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and also head to Inside Texas, where we'll be able to provide a lot of updates and off-season analysis on what the Longhorns are doing. What are they doing? They've started off-season workouts. We'll talk a little bit about what their schedule and regimen looks like. We'll go over some of the freshmen who have already acclimated well to the weight room with Torrey Becton, including some who have taken a liking to some older Longhorns, some guys who have already turned heads. It's that type of year. It's that time of year. And we'll talk a little bit about what Arch Manning said with his interview with ESPN. But Eric, this is fun. The schedule's here. They're all working out. And some guys are already showing that they're ready to hit the weights and get ready for the 2025 season.
Everybody's definitely eager, but the staff is taking a slow and measured approach to workouts. It's common to hear that a team is killing it during off season. That's not this time of year. It was 16 games at the same time. Guys are still recovering from the season and still banged up. Some guys have had procedures. You got a bunch of freshmen on, so the freshmen are acclimating too. They're clearly not ready to go like they've been on campus for a year or two. So this is the time of year. It's kind of a wind up towards when off season fully gets going, but it's still an exciting time. You can tell that there's a lot of very ambitious younger guys in the program that are getting after it pretty good. I do think this is a fun time of the season. This is also when we start to pick up nuggets on who's responding well to strength and conditioning or just life in college in general. Usually the kids we hear about a lot in the early going tend to become the guys we're mentioning a lot on Saturdays.
You posted a little bit about their schedule. Today's leg day for them on Friday. They go through a lot of different things. Full body Monday, lighter vanity day on Tuesday, you called it. Wednesday's recovery, and Thursday is a full body workout. And they also do, you see the clips on social media with them running, them sprinting. You see Arch Manning and Michael Taft being the guys out front. So a lot of good stuff for the Texas social media team to make some good content in the offseason. But there are also some freshmen guys. We already have a ton of the 2025 class, including most of the 2025 class on campus. And there are a few guys that when you spoke with team sources, a few guys have already started to stand out in how they've handled their off-season workouts at the beginning of their Texas careers.
Yeah, one name that stood out to me, and I was kind of a defender of his throughout the process, was Caleb Chester for Ben Marshall, one of the most underrated or lowly rated players in the entire class, the number one class in the country. But you just know that the way that Texas treated him as a priority, they had an entirely different evaluation on him. It's kind of like when one of those NFL coaches, a hotshot coach, takes the guy that nobody had mocked to the first round, and then the guy becomes a star. I feel like that's what's going to happen with Caleb Chester. He's already turning heads. He's probably 6'1", 185 pounds, muscled up, but also just showing a lot of maturity. But this is not an exhaustive list. Again, this is after just a couple weeks of them working out and one full week with the team. So if we don't mention somebody, that's not the end of their career by any stretch. But Jamie French was mentioned. You can see if you've ever seen an interview, he's a high energy guy. Definitely hungry, definitely getting after it. Lance Jackson's been mentioned, very strong, one of the stronger guys in the edge room already, and he's only a true freshman. So that's exciting. Justice Terry's been mentioned pretty much every time I've talked to somebody. He's mentioned again, strong kid in the room, very good attitude. Elijah Barnes, mentioned for his attitude, strength, and flexibility. When you've got a linebacker that's already physically mature, he's probably 235 pounds. You do worry about how they're going to move. You don't want them to get too big. You don't want them to get stiff. We've seen some stiff linebackers at Texas. No offense to anybody, but Dele Adeoye, Anthony Wheeler, those guys didn't move great in space. I don't think that's going to be Barnes. He's already been called flexible, so I love hearing that. Dalen McCutcheon, basically he's basically mini DeAndre Moore. You can see like he's going to be a leader at some point. And then Zealous Hicks, super anxious young guy. You can see why he wanted to reclassify, just hitting the ground running. We heard about some other guys too. I mean, Cade Phillips, stronger in the gym than you'd think. We're hearing a lot of little things. Those are kind of the guys that stood out immediately. But we're going to cover it all the way up to spring ball, and then spring ball will kind of start all over again, see who's balling with the pads on.
This video is brought to you by Andre the Lawyer. If you're injured, trust the team that secured millions for their clients and helped thousands of Texans with their injury case. Car wrecks, slip and falls, 18-wheeler accidents, on-the-job injuries, and wrongful deaths. Don't let insurance tell you what your claim is worth. Hire Andre the Lawyer to fight for you. Principal office is in Dallas, but they serve Texans throughout the state. So don't wait and call Andre the Lawyer today at 214-444-8808. That's 214-444-8808. The contact information is in the description.
Thank you, LC. You talked a little bit, you hinted at one of the mentor-student relationships that are already forming. This reflects well on the seniors, also reflects well on the guys who are trying to learn from some of the guys who have been around. But what are some of the notable ones that you were able to hear about from team sources?
First, I was just kind of excited to hear about it. Normally you hear about a class taking the younger class beneath them under their wing, but I haven't really heard it individualized like this in the past. Like, I loved hearing that Nick Brooks is walking around and trying to pick Trevor Goosby's brain as much as he can. I mean, that's a perfect guy to learn from. And Goosby had a great guy to learn from ahead of him in Kelvin Banks. You kind of want to keep that ball rolling. Zealous Hicks picking Michael Taft's brain. There's a million reasons why it was great that Michael Taft came back. Most of them on the field. He's become a mythical figure as a leader. I think that's great and all, but he's a baller first and foremost. But those leadership intangibles that he has is going to help a young guy that, again, we talked about him reclassifying. Zealous Hicks and Michael Taft, that's a perfect match. And another one is DeAndre Moore and Dalen McCutcheon. Similar skill set. They're going to need Dalen to play early in his career, probably, because they're pretty thin at slot beyond DeAndre. And DeAndre's got a lot of want to. He's a physical player, kind of like he had Jordan Whittington to look up to. You want to keep these lines going. It's kind of like an assembly line. And there's more of it going on. I'm drawing a blank on some of the other names we've heard, but it seems like it's becoming like a team-wide thing. I'm sure Ryan Wingo is taking under, Jamie French and Khalid Lockett. There's just a lot of guys for these younger guys to look up to that are basically just an older version of themselves.
We always hear about culture, and it can become overused at times, but this is a good example of it being a real thing for the Longhorns. You also had a good list of guys at various positions who have, no matter what year they are, already started to show a little bit of ability when trying to defy gravity in the weight room. Some of them are guys you'd expect to hear, but there are a couple that are good news that their names were mentioned for Longhorn fans.
Yeah, well, I mean, we heard about Arch. I'm doing as much recon as I did on Arch when we were covering his recruitment, because you kind of have to start all over with it. Now it's going to start. It's just different dynamics. Everything I've heard about comes up aces. He was listed as one of the tougher guys on the team, and now people are talking about how strong he is in the gym. He's just a whole different dude. It's a combination of his dad and his grandpa, and then the quarterbacking side with his uncles. It's kind of insane. Good news was, we've heard about CJ Baxter lifting. Now, I didn't get details on what he's doing as far as lower body work, but we know that CJ Baxter and Christian Clark have both been getting after it in the weight room. A big thing for them, of course, is going to be once they're come back healthy. That's the first thing you hope for, but they've got to be able to run it between the tackles and show power and grind through injury. Both those guys are built up quite a bit. Of course, we heard about Jarrett Gibson with the running backs. That's no surprise if you've ever seen a picture of him. Who else was mentioned? I'm drawing a blank on who else was mentioned for weightlifting.
At tight end, you had Spencer Shannon and Jordan Washington, which is
right. Yeah.
Good news.
Yeah, exactly. Spencer has to get stronger. That's part of it. He is getting stronger. He had a good offseason last year, one that propelled him towards an offseason that if he has another one like that, you're going to see him on the field quite a bit. Jordan Washington is up to 250 pounds. He's got all the receiving ability. I think that guy can be a 50-catch receiver next year. I feel confident about that. It's going to come down to blocking for him. Linebacker, of course, we mentioned Barnes. Cade Phillips got a mention for DBs as far as the younger guys going. Caleb Chester, of course, was mentioned as well.
And then before we go on to the Arch Manning of it all, there was a position note with a member of Texas 2025 class, a guy often asked about with Michael Terry. What's he doing during these offseason workouts?
Well, he's kind of living up to what they said when they recruited him. They're working him at both running back and wide receiver. So they're doing some football specific stuff. It's certainly not the priority right now, but they are doing some drills. The players are, and he's worked with both running back and wide receiver. You kind of think that the roster going into the next year, running back is the bigger need. But, there's a lot going into running back. Jared Gibson, who had 1 million carries at IMG, wasn't quite ready as a true freshman. So I'll be curious to see how it plays out. But keep moving him around on offense, and he'll stick somewhere.
Offensive weapon, just like he was recruited as. Let's finish up with Arch Manning. It's not often that the quarterback of a team that did not make the national championship game in January, before he's been officially named starter, goes ahead and gets a 18-minute sit-down interview with Marty Smith on ESPN. But that's what happened with Arch Manning, and I think a lot of that had to do with his Red Bull NIL deal. As far as I know, only him and Jeremiah Smith of college football players have that deal. The hype train is going, but what we saw is despite that hype train, Arch Manning is still really, really humble. He's still a goofy, regular guy, kind of like you've written about. And all the good qualities that you've reported on about him really seem to shine through that interview.
Yeah, I mean, he's played the type. The profile we built of him as a recruit has remained. He mentioned a lot of reasons why he's at Texas in the first place were reasons why we were confident he was going to Texas. He's just that same guy. He's going to stay that way too. He could become Patrick. And I don't know how much Patrick Mahomes has changed. Patrick Mahomes was great in high school too. But if he elevates to Patrick Mahomes winning Super Bowls, or he has that profile that his uncles have, he's still going to be the same guy. That's just how that family's wired. But yeah, it was an interesting interview. I like what he was taking away from each of his family members that played quarterback. I mean, obviously he's got his grandfather's athleticism, which kind of makes him a version 3 of that family. But then I like how he mentioned Eli was always even keeled. You couldn't tell if he threw for 400 yards or four turnovers. And then this came as no surprise about how detail-oriented Peyton is. He tries to emulate that. But behind the scenes, he's known as the same guy he was in high school. He's a hard worker. He's a tough kid. He's strong. He's a better athlete than people realize. I think people are starting to realize that now. I think somebody had a list of who, if you could draft out of any class, all classes in this next draft, he would be the number 1 draft pick. I got into it with some Aggies, including my buddy Billy Lucci, about that. Well, why wouldn't you take LeBron James' son first overall, or Michael Jordan's? That's the stupidest argument of all time. There's 3 Mannings that have gotten drafted. The lowest a Manning has been drafted was 2nd overall. The other 2 went first. And Arch is a combination of those 2. So I've never felt more confident in an evaluation than I have about Arch Manning.
There were 3 things that really stood out to me. One, he mentioned how Sark and AJ Milwee really coach him hard. That's what he's looking for. It's a big reason why he wanted to go to Texas. 2, just the fact that, he talks about, I want to win a national championship. He's very team first. Like he took Archie's advice to heart and just kind of being a regular guy. 3rd was the fact that he talked about how the Manning Passing Academy kind of functions as their family reunion, and said that he and Hyde would get wedgies and get bullied by the uncles during those moments. The final thing that I really took away was what Quinn Ewers told him in the locker room after the Cotton Bowl. I think there was a sense nationally, and even a little bit in the Texas fan base, that they wanted this to be they wanted these 2 to be pitted against each other. We never saw that. And I think Arch's words, and even Quinn Ewers' words, to his great credit, show that was never the case in the locker room in Austin.
Well, those are both great dudes, and there's a reason why I was able to work out the way it did. Can't say enough about either of them. They're awesome people. What Archie told his grandson about being a regular guy, that's how he is. He's at school to build relationships. He talks about his friends outside of football. You never hear football players talking about friends outside of the team. He's got a lot of them. He's just a normal guy. And Quinn always remained humble as well. So Sark had a much easier situation to deal with than a lot of other coaches. Brent Venables wasn't able to keep Jackson Arnold and Dylan Gabriel, which is kind of analogous to what happened at Texas. Texas was able to pull it off with even more talented quarterbacks. So it's credit to them. I like, when he mentions Milwee's this unassuming, far from intimidating guy. And Sark, everybody sees the front side of Sark, the public facing Sark, but those guys really get after their quarterbacks. It's no joke. And I'm sure if they do that, and they let the recruits know that, because it's going to be a selection bias. If you don't want to be recruited hard, this is the wrong school for you. So Diabell knows what he's going to walk into. But Arch, is going to be, by the time he leaves by the time he leaves college, him and Sark are going to be best friends. So, they've got a really good thing with Arch, and I'm curious to see how it all unfolds. How he's going to help overcome the losses that they've had on the offensive line. They're going to be bringing along new wide receivers. I still think there's a path for the offense to be really good.
Was a great interview. Arch really handled himself well. Fun thing to kick off the off-season hype train with, and we know that's going to get rolling big time. And we're going to cover it every step of the way over at Inside Texas, so make sure you go to InsideTexas.com. Also, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel. We'll have it all here as well. So, Eric, thank you so much, and thank you for watching Inside the Program on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com.